Mahamevnawa. Can everyone hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, we're gonna start the program now. We'll first go for refuge, take the precepts, and then start the program. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. To observe the 5 precepts, say after me. I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from killing beings.
abstaining from killing beings.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from stealing.
abstaining from stealing.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from telling lies.
abstaining from telling lies.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from taking
abstaining from taking
intoxicating drinks and drugs
intoxicating drinks and drugs
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
I observe these precepts
I observe these precepts
for happiness in this life,
for happiness in this life,
for rebirth in heaven,
for rebirth in heaven,
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
May it help me and be a blessing.
May it help me and be a blessing.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So last week, we talked about breathing meditation, and we were talking mainly about the beginning, like how we start off breathing meditation. And I wanted to cover that again because based on the questions you guys asked, I kind of felt like it was unclear. And the most important part is the beginning. Like if we can come to the point where we can see our breath, where we have a good we have a good idea of how our breath is coming and going, then that's our beginning, that's our starting point. So we need to come there first. Now, to be aware of the breath, I think someone needs to have at least 20 hours of just sitting. That means, let's say someone practices 1 hour a day, then it would take at least 20 days, I think, for them to be aware of their breath, like for it to be identifiable, to come to the very first stage. So today, we're going to talk more about the similes we talked about last time. And then we're going to go through the steps again so it's more clear. And then you guys, if you have any questions, you can ask at any time if any part is unclear. So I'm going to share screens. Now, can you guys see my screen? Okay, so last week, we didn't talk about this, but meditation is split into two types. There's Samatha Bhavana and Vidarshana Bhavana. So Samatha means serenity, that's the translation. And then for Vidarshana, it means insight. So serenity meditation, the goal of serenity meditation is to decrease the hindrances. That means, remember we talked about there are these bothers that come up when we try to meditate. Maybe we think of something pleasant, like maybe we remember our friends. Though maybe we remember something we ate. Maybe we remember a TV show. Maybe we remember something, our parents, or something that makes our mind happy. Those all fall into sensual pleasure. That means a sound we heard, or something we saw, something we smelled, something we felt. All of those are sensual pleasures. And then there's ill will. That means we get conflicted with these things. Something we saw, something we heard. Maybe someone yelled at us. That thought comes up. And then there's restlessness and remorse. That means our mind becomes restless, and we maybe sometimes regret arises in us. And then there's dullness and drowsiness. We don't feel like meditating. Our mind says, okay, let's do this at night. Maybe in 5 minutes we'll start. Maybe an hour from now we'll start. And then we get sleepy. And then finally there's doubt. Am I doing this right? Is it supposed to work like this? So those are all the 5 hindrances. And we talked about this in detail in a past session. And you can watch that if you don't completely understand. But some serenity meditation, Samatha Bhavana, is there to decrease the hindrances. So that's to get our mind concentrated. So Samatha, these types of meditations don't ever disappear from the world. So even if there's no Buddha, loving kindness meditation will be there. Even if there's no Buddha, Karuna meditation, compassionate meditation, altruistic joy or mudita, and then equanimity, upekkha, those meditations are there in the world. But then the other side, vidarshana, insight meditation, only exists in the world when there's a Buddha's dispensation. Insight meditation is deep contemplation. That insight meditation, the goal of insight meditation is to see the reality of the world. So to see impermanent as impermanent, to see foulness as foul, to see something that's suffering as suffering, to see something that doesn't have a soul or a self as something that doesn't have a soul or a self. So anathmade, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, we say in Sinhala. That's the goal of insight. Now, insight meditation, vidarshana, only exists when there's a Buddha's dispensation, because only a Supreme Buddha ever teaches vidarshana bhavana, insight meditation. So today, most bhavanas, most meditations start off as serenity, as samatha. For example, when we practice loving kindness, that's there to calm the hindrances, to make our mind concentrated, so we can do insight meditation. So the goal is to be able to have a concentrated mind, to have enough of a samadhi to practice insight meditation, to develop insight meditation. But someone can also, so there's 3 types of people. There's one person who develops serenity meditation and then develops insight meditation. Then there's another person who develops insight meditation and then develops serenity meditation. And then there's someone who develops both at the same time. So do you guys remember we talked about dependent origination, paticca-samuppada? So if someone practices dependent origination as because of why does birth come to be? It's because of bhava. Why does bhava come to be? It's because of craving. Why does craving come to be? Because of, and so forth. That pattern, when he thinks that counts as serenity. That's samatha. But if he thinks, what is birth? Birth is, there's 5 kinds of birth. You can be born in a womb, you can be born in water, you can be born from an egg, you can be born spontaneously, and so forth. When he thinks like this, that's insight. He's investigating that. He's contemplating that thoroughly. Serenity is more like, even for impermanence, if someone thinks this eye is impermanent, 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 in a sort of pattern, since there's no investigation going on, that counts as serenity, samatha. But if he thinks, why is this eye impermanent? This eye is made up of form. Form is the 4 great elements, and so forth. As he investigates this, that becomes vidarshana. Does that make sense? So everyone clear on the difference? If you're not clear, you tell me right now. You gotta raise your hand or say something, and then I'll explain it again. So those are the 2 types. So when we develop anapanasati, when we develop breathing meditation, again, we're developing at the beginning serenity, samatha. We're trying to suppress the hindrances. We're trying to get them down to a concentrated mind. And then once we have a concentrated mind, then we can switch to vidarshana. Then we can investigate impermanence and suffering and non-self. So to develop, and we're talking only about kaya-anupassana. And we're going to investigate, because in Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, it only investigates kaya-anupassana. And the beginning, even if I teach you guys Vedana-anupassana and Chitta-anupassana, we're still beginners. So we need to be able to develop the very beginning first. And then once we have a good foundation, then we can later on, maybe after months of practice, we can talk about how we can experience Vedana-anupassana and Chitta-anupassana, how we can develop all of those. But through kaya-anupassana, you can develop sapta bojjhanga. That means the 7 enlightenment factors, and we're going to talk about that as well today. So these are so keep this in mind. There's samatha and then vidarshana. So last week we talked about this first phrase, which is that how does this person begin the meditation? He first picks a suitable location. So it says he goes to a forest, to the root of a tree, or to an empty place, and he sits down cross-legged with his back straight, and he arouses mindfulness in front of him. So this is the most important part. He arouses mindfulness. So you pick a suitable time, and then you begin. And then we talked about this simile, which was, let's say someone wants to tame a wild buffalo or ox. So what does he do? He comes and ties this buffalo to a post. And then when the buffalo or the ox tries to run away, what happens? It can't, because it's tied down to a post. You guys remember that? Now we said the post in this simile is the meditation, whatever meditation it is. If it's loving kindness, it's loving kindness. If it's mudita, it's mudita. If it's karuna, it's karuna. If it's dhamma-anusati, it's dhamma-anusati. In this case, it's breathing meditation. And then the buffalo or the ox in this case is the mind, because our mind is constantly trying to get away from the meditation. It wants to think about that show you watched. It wants to think about that song we listened to. It wants to think about these things that we find pleasant. So how do we keep that mind onto that meditation object? It's through mindfulness. And right now our mindfulness is very, very weak. It's like a small piece of string. The more you practice meditation, the stronger this link becomes. So that's what it explains here. The stronger mindfulness is, the easier the mind can stay with the meditation object. The easier it is to practice the meditation. Does that make sense? Everyone understand that part? Everyone, do you understand? Okay. And then we said, this is the very, very beginning of breathing meditation. And I put the Pali here because there's some key words that we need to understand. So it starts off as, so sato va sasati, sato va pasasati. Mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. The key part here is mindfulness. He is aware of the breathing process. He breathes in mindfully and breathes out mindfully. Now, This is the hardest part. Coming to this is the part that we're struggling with right now, because someone needs to be first able to contemplate this, be able to do this for at least, I'd say, 15 to 20 minutes without the mind wavering. So last time when we practiced this, every few seconds, maybe our thoughts went from the breathing to a different kind of thought. So imagine being able to do this for 15 to 20 minutes. That's how long I'd say you'd have to go for breathing meditation to become like for us to become aware of the breath. Like 𝗪𝗪 we say in Sinhala. In order for the breath to become aware of the breath, we'd be able to practice this consistently for 15-20 minutes. And now to get to that stage might take a while, like might take consistent practice, maybe a month or two, if someone's doing this for 20 minutes a day. That's why I said this person needs at least 20 hours of just sitting time. So if someone's doing, let's say, even 5 hours a day, then he would have to spend 4 days. Does that make sense? So consistent 20 hours, I'd say he needs for this to become aware. Like some people come and say, so I've practiced this for 12 years. 12 years straight, they've done this. And they ask, what's next? And then we just say, keep practicing this. So some people it takes a long time. So this meditation is something that the Supreme Buddha says, I don't teach. So all the other meditation the Supreme Buddha teaches, this is practice this. But Anapanasati is very, very special in that the Supreme Buddha says, I only teach this to someone who has good mindfulness, who isn't forgetful. But that doesn't mean after practicing this for 20 minutes, you give up. Okay? So this is about consistency and trying to figure out if we can develop this. Okay? So don't just give up on it after one session. And then we talked about a few similes. Now it's important to remember these similes because they'll help us to have a good understanding of what we're supposed to be focusing on. So mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. And then we said there are a few spots that this person can think of. So that was either the entrance of the nose or the roof of the inside. Now we're not focusing on the actual nose, okay? Don't get that wrong. Like we're focusing on the breath that's going through the nose. That's just the area where you become aware of the breath. Does that make sense? So we're not focusing on the nose in any way. We're focusing on the breath, but that's just where we can see it clearly, where we can feel it more. And there's another important part, which is when we practice this, our eyes are closed, right? But what might happen is, as you focus on this, your eyes might be looking towards the nose. And this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. Why? Because as you do this, so when you try closing your eyes and try focusing on that area, either the inside or the entrance to the nose, try focusing on it. So everyone close your eyes and try focusing on that. You should be in a natural, calm position. Your eyes shouldn't be going towards your nose. Okay, you can open your eyes. If you feel your eyes going towards your nose, you need to be aware of that and then try to keep your eyes in a natural position. Why? Because what happens if you focus here, then your focus, this area gets kind of focused on. And then this leads to headaches. Then you will get a headache in the future. So don't do this. This is wrong. Don't do this ever. Keep your eyes naturally when your eyes are closed. And don't try to look at where you're just knowing. You're just feeling it. You're just feeling the breath. And then we also talked about a simile. So everyone understand this part? We're focusing on the breath. And most of the time you can either feel it at the entrance. Most people it's like this. Or you can feel it on the roof. And some people feel it like just right under the nose, wherever it is. But this is for most people, okay? And then we talked about a simile, which was, imagine there's a guard. Okay. Now, where are we focusing on? We're focusing on the door, right? The entrance. So we said, imagine there's a guard to an entrance, okay? To a building. And when he does this, so there's our guard, he doesn't go and ask these people, what are you doing? Why are you outside? He's only focused on, and he doesn't ask the people inside the building, what are you doing? Why are you guys inside? What's happening right now? He's only focused on the people coming at the door. In the same way, when we focus on the breath, we should only be focused on where we become aware of the breath. Does that make sense? So we shouldn't be focused on anything happening outside and anything happening inside. We should just be aware of where we can see the breath. Make sense? Everyone understand that? And then we talked about another simile, which was the person sawing. So imagine there's a person cutting a board. Now, this saw has many teeth. But even though this saw has many teeth, his attention, the person cutting, his only focus is on the spot where there's cutting happening. Only focused on this spot. So in the same way, this person who's practicing breathing meditation should only be focused on where he can see or where he can feel, where he can experience the breath coming in and coming out. Make sense? And then we also talked about another one, which was the person swinging. So imagine there's a person swinging, and this person, as they swing left and right, when they come to the middle, what does he do? The person gives a little push. And then he sees the person going left, and then he sees the person going right. But even though he's standing still, he can still see this. So in the same way, even though our breath is coming in and out, he's focused, he's well aware of the spot where he can feel, where he can experience the breath. And he doesn't try to focus on it coming in or coming, he doesn't focus on the inside or the outside. He's just focused on feeling the breath coming in and coming out. Does that make sense? Where he experienced, so either in the tip of the nose or the entrance. And then we came to this. Now there's a big difference here. Before we just said, he's mindful, he breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. Now it says, ḍīgaṃ vā asasanto ḍīgaṃ asasamīti bhajanāti. So that says, when breathing in a long breath, he knows I am breathing in a long breath. That's what bhajanāti means. He knows. How does he know? He knows with a concentrated mind. So this isn't something like our normal breath, where we're just breathing in and breathing out. Oh, that's a long breath, that's a short breath. This isn't just a normal one. Now his mind is concentrated. Now that he's become aware of the breath. That's why I said, now he can sit down in 15, 20 minutes. He can be fully concentrated on the breath. Now he's in like some stage of samadhi. Make sense? So when that stage comes, when his mind gets concentrated, then he can see, then his breath becomes long. His breath, he sees that his breath coming in and breath coming out is long. He feels it. It's longer than normal. It's not just a normal breath where we take. And he sees that and he knows, oh, this is a long breath. And then when it comes out, he knows this is a long breath out. And then in the same way, when there's a short breath, he knows there's a short breath coming in and there's a short breath coming out. What does he know from? He knows through a concentrated mind. That's what he's looking through, not just us. And this is something he knows. This is not something he forces. So some people, I'm going to practice breathing meditation, and they start taking deep breaths in. That's not what it's saying here. This is saying he's aware, he knows when there's a long breath coming in. So he's not influencing the breathing in any way. When this breath comes in long, he knows there's a breath coming in long. when there's a breath coming out long, he knows there's a breath coming out long. And the simile for that is, we didn't talk about this last time, but the simile the Buddha teaches is, imagine there's a person planing a piece of wood. Okay? That means there's bumps on this piece of wood. And what does he do? He tries to flatten it. Now this person, when he planes the wood, doesn't think, okay, I'm going to plane this piece of wood this much. I'm going to go 5 centimeters long and then stop. No, based on him planing, based on his feeling, he knows after he planes the wood, he knows, okay, that took a long, I had to do a long stroke there. And when he does a short stroke, he knows, okay, that was a short stroke. He doesn't go into it thinking, I'm going to do a short stroke now. Now I'm going to do a long stroke now. He knows after he does it, that was a long stroke. That was a short stroke. So in the same way, when a long breath comes, he knows there is a long breath. When there's a short breath coming in, he knows there's a short breath coming in. Does that make sense? Now, it's important when this, maybe in this area, either in the area of he becomes aware of the breath. Some people in their past lives, might have practiced 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness. Okay? 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness are something we have very, very little knowledge on. Someone's practicing 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness, stop practicing 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness. We don't know how to practice 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness because we don't have enough information. But this person might see, for example, some people see a full moon maybe. As they practice breathing meditation, they start seeing a full moon. If they focus their mind, they switch their mind from focusing on the breath to that, then they're not practicing breathing meditation anymore. Now they start practicing 𝗪𝗂𝑐ness, which is something completely different. So always be aware that our goal in Anapanasati is to focus on the breath. We should never let go of that. That's our goal. We're just focusing on the breath without any influence. And then here, the next part is this. 𝗙𝗵𝗁 𝗵𝗂 𝗪𝗵𝗁 𝗔𝐸. So now, before, what did it say? In the paragraph before, it said, ڀජānāti. He knows. This part, it says, he knows. When there's a long breath coming in, he knows. When there's a long breath going out, he knows. But here, it says something completely different. Now it says, he's aware, conscious of the entire breathing process. I will breathe in. He trains himself that way. 𝗙𝗚𝗍 means he trains. How does he train? He trains to see this entire breathing process. Now, this is just a simile I made up, but imagine a train coming out of a tunnel and someone's watching. When this train is coming out, he knows the first card is coming out, the second card, the third card, all the way up till the last card, right? So in the same way, when there's a long breath, he knows the beginning of that breath, the middle, and the end. He sees that entire breath coming in and coming out. If it's short, he sees the entirety of that short breath coming in and coming out. Does that make sense? So he sees the entire, he tries to focus his mind now on that entire breathing process. The beginning, the middle, and the end of that breath. So if it's a long breath, he sees the beginning of it, he sees the middle, and then he sees it end. And then it comes in again, he sees the beginning, he sees the middle, he sees the end. Does that make sense? Everyone understand that? So here is something completely different. So here he's training himself to do this. Now, as he does this, his mind, as he comes to these stages, even in Digango, he gets a happiness. There's a happiness that comes with having that kind of samadhi. Even if once you're able to practice this for 20, 30 minutes straight, then you'll be very, very happy because your mind is somehow like you have a little bit of samadhi. And for a lot of people, that's a very, very new thing. So as soon as they feel that, they think, oh, I need this again. I need to do this again. And they forget that they're supposed to be focusing on the breath. Okay? And then we come to the last part of Kaya-anupassana, which is pasambhayam kaya sankarang asasisamiti sikkati. Then it says, calming the entire breathing process, I'll breathe in. And he trains himself this way. Again, is 𝗙𝗿. He's training himself this way. So now he's aware of the entire breathing process, the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And now this becomes calmer. This becomes less and less, more and more subtle. The breathing becomes more and more subtle. And we talked about, imagine a person running. After he runs, they come and sit down under a nice shade in a place with cool water, and his breathing calms down. It's not as rough anymore. In the same way, this breathing also becomes now very, very calm. Before it was not as subtle. Now it becomes more and more subtle. So that's how he practices it. He trains himself to do this now. Now, as he does this, his mind is now concentrated very well. He's now to come to this stage, his mind is very, very concentrated. Here, there's a concentrated mind. The hindrances are suppressed. There's thought and applied thought and sustained thought. And there's preeti. That means there's happiness in the mind. Does that make sense? So there's happiness in the mind and there's happiness in the body. So when you come to this stage, if you have these 10 signs, which is, what are the 10 signs? There's a concentrated mind. There's happiness in the mind, and 𝗪𝗍, which is happiness that spreads throughout the body. His whole body is filled with joy now. There's no knee pain. There's no back pain. There's no, this hurts, that's itchy, this is itchy. His mind is now completely focused on this meditation, and his whole body is filled with joy when he comes to this part. So if he has these signs, then he knows, okay, right? I have the first, he's in the first dhyana, you can say. Okay? He's in the first dhyana. If he has these 10 signs, which are the 5 hindrances are suppressed, he has a concentrated mind, he has applied thought and sustained thought, and he has preeti, happiness in the mind, and 𝗪𝗍, happiness that spreads throughout the body. And then now his mind, that means his mind is concentrated, he's in the first dhyana. Now after this, when his mind is concentrated, that is when, so does everyone understand up till now? After his mind is concentrated, after he gets to some concentration, this is when he can switch. And now with that concentrated mind, he can now try to focus on impermanence. Now he can try to focus on the rising and cessation. Now he can try to see. So we said this, he sees the entire breathing process, right? So you see, that's a separate body. The Buddha teaches that's the breathing body, the body of the breath. So he sees that. And he sees, what does he see? He sees this is something made up of the 4 great elements. As the 4 great elements pass away, this breath also passes away. This body is also made up of the 4 great elements. If the 4 great elements cease, then this body ceases. And now he starts seeing impermanence. He starts seeing suffering as how he sees this, everything we cling to. These are all made up of the 4 great elements. These are all made up of something impermanent. And he sees suffering as suffering. And then he sees there's no one has control over this. We don't have control over these 4. I can't say I want these elements to be this way. I want these elements to be that way. So there's no self here. There's nothing to obtain by thinking of a self. And as he investigates this, as he thinks about this, with mindfulness, his sati sambojjhanga, his mindfulness factor of enlightenment starts developing. So now he's doing Dhamma anupassana. Okay? Before we were doing Kaya anupassana. Up till here, this is Kaya anupassana. Up till here. Now, after that, he's switching to Dhamma, he's investigating the Dhamma. And as he investigates, this is Dhamma Vichaya Bojjhanga Dharma, his investigation of the Dhamma enlightenment factor also starts to develop. As he does that, he needs effort now to continue this. So he's continuing this, he's continuing contemplating this with effort. As he does this, his virya, his effort factor of enlightenment starts to develop. And then as he contemplates this, there's a huge happiness that arises in him. This happiness again fills the entire body and again fills the entire mind. Then his piti, his happiness factor of enlightenment, starts to develop. In the same, then his mind gets calm. As he does this, his passaddhi factor of enlightenment, or calm factor of enlightenment, starts to develop. And then his mind gets concentrated on this. As he focuses on this, his mind gets samadhi through dhammanupassana. Okay? As he does this, as he's contemplating this, again, he obtains samadhi, and his samadhi factor or concentration factor of enlightenment starts to develop. And then he sees, now he's looking at this with a mind of equanimity. That means this upekkha is not a feeling. It's not like, so we say there's pleasant feeling, there's unpleasant feelings, and there's neutral, equanimous feelings. That means it's not either a pleasant or an unpleasant feeling. But this is not what he's talking about here. This is saying he's looking at this through equanimity. That means he doesn't get attached to that samadhi. He sees this samadhi is also something that has a cause. This also has a cessation. He sees cause and effect. As he sees this, then he comes to upekkha. That means equanimity. When he does this, his equanimity factor of enlightenment also starts to develop. So that's how through anapanasati, through kayanupassana, the 7 factors of enlightenment starts to develop. Does that make sense? So it goes from kayanupassana to dhammanupassana. Now through anapanasati, you can also go from kayanupassana to vedananupassana to chittanupassana, then to dhammanupassana. Someone can go from kayanupassana to vedananupassana to dhammanupassana, or kayanupassana to chittanupassana, then dhammanupassana. But in the end, all meditations, the goal is to come to dhammanupassana, which is, this is when he's doing vidarshana now. He's doing insight meditation. As he does this, then these start to develop. So right now, up till now, he's only done samatha. He's only done serenity meditation. When he starts thinking of this, when he starts contemplating this, then it becomes vidarshana. Now, to do vidarshana, you need some dhamma knowledge. Because what's he trying to see? He's trying to see dependent origination. He's trying to see the 5 aggregates of clinging. He's trying to see cause and effect. He's trying to see impermanence. To all of these things, you need Dhamma knowledge. That's why we covered dependent origination first. Because if someone sees the Dhamma, he sees dependent origination. If someone sees dependent origination, he sees the Dhamma. He sees cause and effect. That's the goal here. Everything is to see that, is to see the true nature of these things. Does that make sense? Everyone understand that part? Is there any part that's confusing? Shalini, do you understand? Chaturma, you understood? Rooney? Does it make sense? So there's also another important part you should note, which is that when you come to this part, we said a huge happiness arises, right? So when you come to that part where you're concentrating, now you're trying to tranquilize, you're trying to calm down the breathing process. First, there's 2 problems. So as we start seeing, it could be either at the stage where it goes digang vasasanto, that means it goes to a long breath, and then that breath becomes shorter and shorter and shorter, and it can come to a stage where it disappears, or you think it disappears. Remember we talked about this? You might think, oh, where's my breath? It's gone now. At that stage, you have to be very, very aware that, no, my breath isn't gone. I'm just not aware of it. That's when you question yourself, who doesn't have a breath? A dead person doesn't have a breath. Someone in the 4th dhyana doesn't have a breath. Someone in the formless dhyanas don't have a breath. And someone who's in Nirodha Samapatti doesn't have a breath. And that means this person, the last stage, Nirodha Samapatti, is for someone who's anagami or enlightened. Arahant, or that means non-returner or enlightened. Anagami or arahant. We're none of those. So our breath is there, we just have to be aware of it. That's when he concentrates on that again, where the door, the guard, like guarding the door, he concentrates on the door. The person sawing a piece of wood, he concentrates on the place where the sawing is happening. And the person watching that swing go back and forth, he concentrates on where the swing comes in front of him. Does that make sense? When he concentrates either at the entrance of the nose or where he feels the breath, then again he sees the breath has just become very, very subtle, but it's still there. So he has to be very, very aware of that. So to come to this stage, think about the focus, how developed the mind has to be just to be aware of something that subtle. Have you guys ever heard like when someone hits a gong or a bell? In those temples, when you hit the bell, first it's a very, very loud noise. Anyone can hear it. But then it becomes very, very subtle. That last bit is very, very, the frequency is so low, only a few people can hear it. Someone who's hard of hearing can't hear that. And that, just to focus on that, takes a lot of energy. Like you need a very, very subtle focus to feel that, to hear that. In the same way, when you come to this part, you need to have very, very focus, to be very, very aware of the breath. But you have to tell yourself, the breath is still there, I'm just not aware of it. Does that make sense? And then the second important part is, now as you guys do this, when you guys, a lot of people come and say, I was able to focus on the breath. And an unbelievable happiness came to me. But then it disappeared. So they came to some certain samadhi. I don't want to say dhyana, but they've come to a certain level of concentration and a happiness arises. Why? Because this is something we haven't experienced before. It's something completely different than anything that we normally experience. It's not to do with sensual pleasures. It has nothing to do with that. So this happiness is something much better than that. It's something more freeing. So when they experience that, people come and say, so I felt that happiness, but then it disappeared. Does anyone know the reason why it disappeared? The reason is, what is anapanasati? The concentration built on. Anapanasati, the foundation, it's built on focusing on the breath. As long as he's focusing on the breath, that feeling will be there. What happens? As soon as that feeling arises, we forget about breathing, focusing on the breath, and we switch to that, contemplating that feeling. As you start contemplating that feeling, then the cause isn't there anymore. The reason that feeling arose isn't there. Why? The reason that feeling arose is because we were focusing on the breath. Now we're not focusing on the breath, the feeling disappears. And then that person, next time he sits down again, thinking, I want to get that feeling again. So he sits down with the wrong purpose. He should sit down first with thinking like this. Now, when you guys practice this in the beginning, you should always think, my mind is going to get distracted. I'm a beginner. I'm starting this off very, very new. My mind is going to go from one object to another, to another, to another. But even if that happens, I won't get conflicted. Every single time that it happens, I'm going to bring my mind back to the breath. You should have that kind of state of mind. Otherwise, some people come and say, I can't do this. Every time I do this, I end up getting angry. Why? Because they sit down thinking, I need to be able to focus on this 15, 20 minutes right now, right away. That's like someone going to the gym thinking, I need to be able to lift the heaviest weight on the first day. Does that happen? Can someone do that? No, that person, it takes months to increase a certain amount of weight. It takes he has to dedicate his time every single day. He goes an hour, 2 hours. He puts in effort at the gym, and then slowly he increases his weight after months sometimes. So to get to that stage took a lot of effort and a lot of dedication. But then when people meditate, they think, no, I need to have the results right now. I need to be able to do meditation right now. I need to be able to sit for 5 hours right now. But that's not going to happen. You have to start off with the mind thinking, no, I'm going to start off knowing where I am with my feet on the ground, knowing I'm a beginner, knowing I'm someone practicing, but I'm going to do this consistently every single day for these consistently. That means for these every single day, I'm going to practice, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes. And it's all meditation is all about consistency. If someone does it, if someone breaks that cycle, then their mind, that progress gets slowed down. And if someone is doing this only once a week on these programs, your mind is not going to develop. Don't expect your mind to be able to be a meditation master. It's not going to happen. This is just this class is just we teach you something, and then based on that, you guys have to practice this. This is just your real life is the practical. This is just the theory. We teach you the theory, and then we give you a small lesson on how to do this, and then you guys have to do this yourselves. And then when you have questions, then you come and ask, I answer this, I had this problem, I couldn't do this, how do I do it here, and so forth. Does that make sense? So always remember, when you practice breathing meditation, don't end up switching your mental object to the breath. So for some, maybe there's people here who know, in Vedananupassana, it comes to experiencing that happiness. But even there, it says, experiencing mental happiness, I will breathe in and breathe out. So again, he's still focused on the breath, but he experiences that happiness. So in the same way, when you focus, when you come to a certain stage, you guys will feel an unbelievable happiness. Don't focus on that. Keep focusing on the breath. And as you focus on the breath, that feeling will still stay there. You can experience that. But as soon as you switch your mind to that, then everything collapses and you start from the beginning. Make sense? Okay, so now we will. Does anyone have any questions on that part? Anyone confused about anything? Now is the time to ask. If you guys need any clarifying, you can tell me. I'll explain that part again. Everyone understand? Chaturma, you understood everything? Runi? We can't hear you. I think your mic isn't working. You understand? Okay. So now we will try practicing this. We'll practice breathing meditation for 10 minutes, okay? So until 9, we'll practice this. So now, you should have a checklist in your mind. Okay, now what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to focus on? First is about your posture. Now in your mind, you should say, okay, I should sit, if possible, with your legs crossed. But the most important, even if you're sitting on a chair, try to sit with your back straight. Okay, without resting on the backrest, try to sit with your back straight. Why? Because you're trying to train your body. Okay, Hans, Tisaru has a question? Is Tisaru there?
Namo Buddhaya Swaminathan. Yes, I had a question. What we can do if we have like any pain while we are doing the meditation? So how can we focus on that? I mean, like get rid of that.
Pain, like where?
Like especially like around knees or the back. If we get a pain like that, so how can we?
Knee pain. If you have trouble sitting cross-legged, that's why I said sit on a chair. And then if you have back pain, if it's like you were injured, then it's okay to use the backrest. But if you're not injured, like when you're just starting off meditation and you're healthy, then your body isn't used to sitting without a backrest. Like nowadays, we just sit on backrest all the time. But we're not used to that. That takes time. So maybe try, sometimes like monks, we set up a book and then we sit with our back straight and read. And we're not meditating, but we're sitting and reading with our back straight. That way our body gets used to keeping the back straight. Does that make sense? then our mind focuses, because sometimes when you meditate, your mind is completely trying to focus on one thought, right? But for example, when you read, your mind is focused on what you're reading. So it's much easier for the mind to focus on that. Then naturally, when your mind gets focused on that, you forget the back pain. Does it make sense? So like this is something that happens a lot of the time, because like let's say, so when monks are first, we get taught like, oh, you have to do a, let's say, a vandana. You have to teach people how to worship, okay? The person who can't sit with their back straight for an hour, because his mind is focused on trying to teach people how to worship, his back stays straight for that 1 hour without him being aware. Why? Because his mind completely ignores the pain, and because he's stressed and because he's nervous on teaching people how to do a vandana, he forgets that pain, and then he can sit straight for a long time. So it's about practice that. And then again, we talked about last time, don't do this. As soon as I see someone meditating like this, I know this person has no idea how to meditate. This person is completely clueless on how to meditate, and it just does this for the Instagram picture. Keep your hands on your lap, keep your hands on your knees in a comfortable position. The reason we say don't do this, have you ever seen a monk do this? No monks do this because they know how to meditate. The reason is because after you do this for 5 minutes, your fingers start hurting. And then your mind goes from thinking about the meditation object to your fingers. Just sitting like that is completely wasted. So again, we want to sit down, and if you're healthy, even if you can sit cross-legged, try to practice that. Doing stretching and doing exercises to help with that is completely fine. Like monks do that also, because if they're not used to sitting. So practicing stretching is good for meditation and good for your life in the long run. Like when you get old, if you have problems like that, it's going to increase. Stretching and exercise is a good part of upkeep for this body. So practice those. Like a daily routine is good. Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes like that is completely fine. And then okay, now I hope that answered your question. Does anyone have any other questions? Tisaru, did that answer your question?
Yes, Swaminathan.
Okay. Now sit in a comfortable position. If you can sit cross-legged, sit cross-legged. If you have trouble with that, sit on your chair, but keep your back straight. Don't rest your head because you're going to fall asleep. And then now close your eyes. Close your eyes. And think. First, tell yourself. First, be aware of how your head is placed. If there's any tension in your head, near your eyebrows, let go of that tension. If there's any tension in your shoulders, if your shoulders feel tense, let go of that tension. But keep your back straight. And then be aware of how your hands are placed. Make sure they're in a comfortable position where they don't feel heavy. And then be aware of how your legs are placed. Now tell your mind, I'm going to, for these next few minutes, practice breathing meditation. Any outside thoughts that come, there's no reason for me to think about those things. I don't need to think about friends or family or work or problems. All I have to focus on is this breath, breathing in and breathing out. There's absolutely nothing else I need to think about for these next few minutes. And then with that thought in mind, also tell yourself, it's natural for this mind to get distracted. My mind will get distracted, but that's okay. Each time it gets distracted, I will bring my mind back to the breath. Even if it's 100 times, I will bring my mind, without getting angry, back to my breath. I am a beginner. I am practicing this for some inner happiness. Now slowly bring your attention to your breath. Make sure your eyes aren't turning towards your nose. Simply be aware, either at the entrance of the nose or at the roof of the nose. Be aware of the breath. Watch it come in and come out. When this breath comes in, think, there's a breath in. When this breath comes out, think, breath out. Don't forcefully breathe. We're simply watching the breath. We're watching this natural process of this breath coming in and coming out without influencing it or forcing it in any way. Each time you get distracted, bring your mind back to the breath. Okay, you can slowly open your eyes. Now, one thing I should mention is when we practice this, you don't need to like stare at, like, you just keep your head naturally. You don't need to like look at the ground or look up or anywhere. Just keep your head comfortably. And then for the hand placement is also a bit important. For example, some people when they place it in their lap, their back is straight. Some people when they place it on their knees, their back is straight. So try to figure out a way which is more comfortable and helps you to keep your back straight. And then also, so the reason why keeping your back is important is try slouching. Like everyone slouch like this, where your stomach is crushed. And then try breathing. It's much harder to breathe when your stomach is, like when your back isn't straight, because it's harder for the air to go through. That's why we say your back should be straight in this meditation, because otherwise you won't be able to properly see the breath coming in and coming out. It's not for any other reason. And then also, if you can practice sitting cross-legged, you should try that. And a good way to do that is if you get a cushion, maybe 2 or 3 inches thick, you can sit on the very edge of that cushion. And then as soon as you sit on the edge of that cushion, because you're like almost falling off, your back gets straight naturally. Because you don't want to fall off, your back becomes straight. You can try sitting on the very edge of your chair, and you'll see that as you sit on the edge of the chair, your back naturally becomes straight to keep yourself balanced. Even the edge of a bed, you can see that your back naturally becomes straight because your body tries to maintain its balance. So if you can sit like that, practice that. And then now, so I'm pretty sure next week we're not going to be able to have this program, or the week after. Next week there's going to be a pilgrimage, and the week after is the full moon day. So you guys have 2 weeks straight from now till the very next program to consecutively practice this. So the best thing to do is get a small calendar. You guys all have phones, so you can just use your phone. And then every single day you did breathing meditation, make a note, make a little check mark. This is your homework. Make a little check mark. And if you guys have a calendar, a printable one or whatever, make a little check mark on that. And then in 2 weeks, show me, those of you who are willing to undertake this challenge, show me in 2 weeks. So I did this consecutively for 2 weeks. And then as I did this, I had this problem, I had that problem. And then you guys can explain to me or share that feedback. So that's your homework. So for these next 2 weeks, since I'm pretty sure we won't be able to have the program for 2 weeks, practice this consecutively for these next few days. And then I'm telling you to show me, because that way you have some responsibility. Otherwise, you're gonna tell your mind, yeah, I'm gonna do this for these 2 weeks. Don't worry, I got this. And you're not gonna write it down. You're not gonna check it off, and you're gonna forget, and then be like, oh, Science, I forgot to do this. So those of you who wish, you can tell me right now, Science, I'm gonna do this consecutively for these next 2 weeks, and then show you. So, is it Jan Hendrik? Are you gonna do it for these next 2 weeks? Okay, Rooney? Yes or no? You gotta tell me right now. Just nod your head. Okay. Shalini?
Yes, sir. I will be doing it. I
Okay,
am
so
still doing it.
in 2 weeks, you have to show me like I did this for 2 weeks straight. Jayama? Yes or no?
Yes, I do it. Yeah.
Okay, Chaturma?
Also, as long as I will do it.
Okay, Deborah? Okay, Shubha? Can't hear you, but you can just say, do your hand, like virtual hand or whatever.
Bante, I joined late, Bante. But Satipaṭṭhāna last week I heard, but I don't know today's Bante.
I didn't understand. You-
Bante, I joined late for the class, Bante.
Oh, it's okay. We have this
Today's
on. We have this on our Facebook and YouTube. You can just watch this again and then try. Okay.
Bante. I will do it, Bante.
Okay.
Sadhu.
Terica,
Bante.
Terica, are you there?
Yes, I will try my best. I will try to do it.
Okay. And then Vishaka,
My sense, I will do it.
did you do this last week?
My sense, I did.
You did every single day?
I did every single day except one day I did after 12, so I don't know if it counts as the next day.
Okay, that's fine. As long as you did it. Then you do it twice the other day? Okay, it's fine, it's fine. Tisaru, are you gonna do it for these next 2 weeks?
Yes, Swaminathan, I'll try my best to do it.
No, those people that say I'm gonna try my best is pretty much a no.
It's not
Really?
no, Swaminathan, I'll try it because
Yeah, you'll try. You're gonna fall asleep. You're not gonna do it. As soon as this class ends, you're gonna be like, "What meditation class?" I don't know what that is. Lily. Okay, those two are not there. Amavindi. Okay, Amavindi has a question. When focusing on the breath, do we need to imaginary focus on the nose as well? No, no, no. We're not. Our goal is not to focus on the nose. Our goal is to focus on the breath. But there are areas where that breath becomes more prevalent or easier to focus on. That's why we said either the entrance of the nose or the inside of the nose. That's where most people can feel the breath more. But we're not focusing on the nose expanding or anything like that. We're simply focusing on the breath. Does that make sense? Samavindi there? And then Didi there? You gotta give a thumbs up or a thumbs down whether you're gonna do this for 2 weeks. He said yes. Didi said yes. And then Sajivani?
I will do Swaminathan.
Hi. Deeptika? Okay, Savisha and Saveen said yes. Does someone have a question? You have a question?
Namabuddhaya Swaminathan. Savish and Savin would like to know what happens after they get the focus. Like after they manage, they want to know Swaminathan to focus on the breath.
So the beginning is mindfully breathe in, mindfully breathe out, right? If someone can continue that for 15 to 20 minutes, I'd say they have that part kind of down. Like that part they're good to go on. Then they continue doing that. As they continue seeing the breath coming in and coming out, now their mind isn't like maybe once in a while a stray thought comes and then they like hit it away and then now they're still focused on the breath, okay? And then after a bit like this, their mind gets more and more concentrated. Okay? When their mind gets more and more concentrated, then they start seeing suddenly there's like a very, very long breath. This breath isn't like a normal, like a normal breath in and breath out. It's like we say breath in, breath out, right? This long breath, you can say breath in, breath in, breath in, breath in, breath in, like 5 times for that long breath in. And then 5 times for that long breath out. And then he sees this long breath in and long breath out. Then his breath starts to become shorter and shorter, and he sees this breath become very, very short, like a pulse. Then his mind is now his mind is very, very focused. He sees this breath, he's seeing it through a concentrated mind. Like someone asked me last time, I should mention this. Someone said, so I can feel this breath going in through my nose, filling my lungs, and then coming out again. But there's two words that were very, very important. One was pajanati, he knows, and the other one was sikkati. Pajanati comes first, which means he knows the breath coming in long and the breath coming out long. He knows the breath coming in short and the breath coming out short. He knows with a concentrated mind. If someone just tries to do this on purpose, it won't work, because he has to look at this through a concentrated mind. If someone tries to force this, it won't ever work. Some other problem might arise. So don't forget the first bit. This is where you have to be patient, where you have to focus, where it takes energy, where you have to lay the foundation, which is being able to observe the breath, to see the breath consistently for at least 15-20 minutes. Even just being able to do this, you will find some happiness through that. It will be very, very pleasant feeling just being able to watch the breath consistently like that without any thoughts bothering you. And then another thing you should be aware of is that not every day is going to be a good day. Not every day you'll be able to focus on your breath. When you start off, like, some days will be bad. Some days a defilement will overcome your mind. Maybe someone yelled at you at work that day. That day, and every single time you try to focus on the breath, your mind keeps going back to that person who yelled at you. There will be days like that. Then there will be days you sit down and the meditation just flows naturally. Those days will be good. Just so be aware before you start, I'm going to have good days, I'm going to have bad days. That's normal. Someone is asking, so I'm also very beginning, do we have to force and breathe? No, you never in any stage is there any forcefully breathing. Always you're trying to watch the breath without any influence to it. Nowhere, even if you go from Kaya-nupassana to Dhamma-nupassana, nowhere in between is there any forcing the breath. You're simply watching it. You're watching the breath come in and come out as a natural process. When there's a breath coming in, you just observe there's a breath in. And then after that, you don't even have to observe that. You just know. And that example I gave was, imagine your nose is itchy. Your nose is itchy, and what do? You bring your hand and scratch it. As your hand is coming up, are you thinking, my hand is coming up, my hand is coming up, my hand is coming up, my hand is scratching? You're not thinking that. You're simply aware and knowing your hand is coming up and scratching your nose. In the same way, after you get used to watching the breath, you don't have to think breath in, breath out. You just know there's a breath in, there's a breath out. You're just aware of that. And then after that, so after the long breath and the short breath, that's when you train yourself to see the entire breath. So let's say the breath is this long. You see the beginning, the middle, and the end coming through. Before, you just know this breath came in and you just know there's a breath in. When this breath came out, there's a breath out. Now you see this is the beginning, the middle, the end. You're training yourself to see this entire length. Does that make sense? So there's a breath in this long, there's a breath out this long. Then there's a breath in this short, there's a breath out this short. And you see the beginning, the middle, and the end of that, even that short breath. So you're training yourself this way. And then you train yourself to calm the breath. You calm that breath, and that breath becomes more and more subtle. And last week we gave the example. Imagine someone grabs your hand very, very tightly. Okay? Now you feel that as a very, very gross, like a very non-subtle feeling. Then imagine a small baby grabs your finger. Okay? That's a very pleasant, a very subtle sensation. People enjoy that a lot. Like, that's why mothers put their finger, when there's a baby like this, they put their finger in there. And they like experience, because it's a very, very soft, very, very subtle feeling. In the same way, you're training yourself to make this breath subtle. As this happens, it's a very, very subtle feeling. That breath becomes more and more, you become less, like it becomes more, softer and softer, if that makes sense. And then after he does this, after he's trained in this, after he's very, very concentrated in this, he will have 10 signs. The 10 are, the 5 hindrances are removed, they're suppressed, and he has a concentrated mind, he has applied thought and sustained thought, and he has happiness in the mind, pritya, and happiness in the body that fills his entire body, which is sukha. Then he knows, okay, I'm in the first dhyana. He's in a high meditative state now. And with that, he can switch to from Kaya-nupassana. And if someone has this, we can talk about this later on, he can switch to Vedana-nupassana, because now his entire body is filled with a happy feeling. Then that feeling becomes more and more prevalent. He can focus on that. And then later on, that feeling subsides. And then his mind becomes more prevalent. And then he can go to Chitta-nupassana. Or that's what we talked about today. After Kaya-nupassana, he can switch to Dhamma-nupassana, which is trying to contemplate impermanence, trying to contemplate suffering as suffering and non-self as non-self. That's like focusing on a dependent origination, focusing on the 5 aggregates of clinging, focusing on the 6 sense bases, all these things that come with Dhamma knowledge. So you have to have a Dhamma knowledge of those things to ever do Vidarshana. That portion, that Dhammanupassana portion, only exists when there's a Buddha in the world. As soon as a Buddhist dispensation is over, that portion completely is removed from the world. Nowhere in the world, you can't ever contemplate those things ever again. The Dhamma is gone. It's not there anymore. You have to wait till another Buddha arises. So this chance of contemplating Vidarshana is only there because you have a Buddhist dispensation and the Dhamma still exists in the world. As soon as that is gone, you miss that chance. So that's what he has to do. And then after he does this, his 7 factors of enlightenment develop. We talked about that. And then as those develop, he is able to realize 2 things: Vidya, Vimukti, knowledge, and liberation. And when he does that, that means he becomes enlightened. He's an arahant. Now this seems so easy, just and then you get this. But it's not that easy. It's lots of practice, like someone who's able to practice this and get dhyanas, he must have like tons and tons of merit from his past lives. Because Anapanasati is taught by the Buddha to monks who have developed mindfulness to a certain extent. And most of those monks, you can come to the conclusion they were either Sotapanna, stream enters, or they were Sakadagami, once returners, or Anagami, that means non-returners. Like they've reached stages of enlightenment as the Buddha is teaching them this. So this is something like that's more, this meditation is more to someone who has a good foundation of mindfulness. Because think about it, let's say a monk is practicing Anapanasati versus someone in the lay life. That monk first, even as he eats food, he contemplates, this food is only there to sustain this body. Again, what is he doing? Suppressing the hindrances. Just while eating food, that sensual pleasure for that food, that thought, he's suppressing it. He doesn't see a Pizza Hut sign and think, I need to eat that tomorrow. What does he do? He suppresses those feelings. And then he goes to the washroom, let's say, and even as he is in the washroom, he's contemplating, this body is impermanent. I have to maintain this. I have to look how much time. Every single day, I have to brush my teeth twice. Every single day, I have to shower this body, and yet it still gets impure. It still stinks. It still gets disgusting. He contemplates it and then uses the washroom and comes out. And then he's walking with, later on we'll learn, with mindfulness. He's doing everything with mindfulness. Again, what's he doing? His entire day, he's suppressing the hindrances. And then he sits down with mindfulness and focuses on the breath. So his entire day has been, what's the first one? Samatha. He's been Samatha. His entire day, he's been practicing Samatha Bhavana. While walking, while doing his daily chores, all of that is Samatha, serenity meditation. Then when he sits down, that serenity, since he's practiced that, he has a good beginning. He sits down and he's practicing serenity meditation. Now it flows very, very well. And then what does he do? Then he's able to focus the mind. Now, even for a monk, this is only for someone who has lots of merit. He can obtain dhyanas and then so forth, and then he can convert that to Vidarshana. But someone can also do Vidarshana without doing serenity. He can think, like if he contemplates, okay, these teeth are something foul, these teeth age, these teeth are gonna erode, these teeth are gonna rot, these teeth are disgusting, and so forth. As he contemplates that, that's Vidarshana, that's insight. So foulness meditation is only, again, something that exists in a Buddhist time. Nowhere else in the time, and nowhere else in the world there will be foulness meditation. So as he practices this, then he switches to Vidarshana, and then he can see the reality of things with a concentrated mind. Does that make sense? So that's the goal. A Buddhist meditates not with just having a pleasant life here. He meditates with the goal, is explained by the Buddha, of achieving liberation. Vidya Vimukti is the goal, not just I'm going to go touch the sun and moon, I'm going to go fly through the sky, I'm going to do this. That's not the goal. The goal is liberation. Not to show off, not to any of these things. Make sense? So everyone, any other questions? Who didn't I ask? Sanjeeva, is Sanjeeva there? Sumedha there? Okay, Sumedha said yes. And then 𝗚𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫, you there? Okay, I'm going to assume they're not there. So next 2 weeks, you guys have 2 weeks. At least spend 10, 15, 20 minutes consistently every day. And the best way is to, again, do a check mark. Have it in a place where you see it. Maybe when you wake up, have a calendar printed out. Because when you see that, okay, I did 4 days in a row, when that 5th day comes, you don't want to skip it because you see the check marks. You think, oh, I've done this consistently. I don't want to lose my progress. But if you don't see that sign, if you don't see it, then you might think, no, it's okay. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm tired today. But when you see those things, you think, no, I don't want to break this. I don't want to break my progress. And that's another motivation for you to practice this. So any way we can get outside help, you should use that. Does that make sense? So if that helps you, do that. If you can remind someone, if you want someone to remind you, tell them, remind me to do this today. Whatever help you can get, do this. Because you only have this chance only for this very, very short period of time. No other time can you practice this. So any other questions? Does anyone have any questions? Everything is clear? You guys can teach me this now? No, you should be able to say yes. I can teach this to someone now. Like I have a good knowledge of this, because if you can teach this, then I know you are at a level where you can do this by yourself. Like you're good to go. Because after 2 weeks, we're not going to cover Anapan. We're going to switch to a different meditation. Because we've covered Kayanupassana now. Next will be Iriapati. Just meditation on the postures. So you guys should have a clear understanding of each part now, okay? Shalin, you can teach me this now?
Sir, I can try.
You should have confidence, like I got this. I'm good to go. Otherwise, you'll be sitting down, and then that other hindrance, doubt, will arise. Am I doing this? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Is this the next part? Does that make sense?
Actually, I'm very new to this, so I'm grasping it very slowly.
Okay, then listen to this again, and then try to have a very clear understanding of each part. First is just sitting mindfully, breathing in, breathing out. Then seeing the long breath, the short breath. Then seeing the entire breath. Then calming the breath. Those are the 4 stages. Okay? Chatumar, you have this down? You can teach me now?
Not all Swaminathan, sir, but
What part?
yeah, my Swaminathan.
What part do you not understand?
I can explain now how to start the breathing meditation and how to go forward with the steps. Like to first step, we have to concentrate. We have to see the breathing in and out. Then we have to see the long breathing and the short breathings in and out. Then we have to.
They're very, very important. understand that long breath comes with a concentrated mind. It is not just a normal long breath. That comes after the mind has settled a certain amount, and you see the breath becomes long. You don't like breathe in long, it becomes long, and you know that because it says bhajanati. You know that long breath coming in as a long breath. Okay? So if you ever teach this to someone, make sure you're clear on that. Han Hendrik, you can teach me? So it has to be like, I can teach you. Okay. Okay, then does anyone have any other questions? Do you have any questions? Jan, you have a question? No? Okay. Jayama, you can teach me this? You're good? Everything is clear? Okay. If no one else has any questions, we'll end the program there then. So today we collected lots of merit by practicing breathing meditation, by learning the Buddhist Dhamma. All this merit we collected, we share with all the devas. May all the devas rejoice in this merit. May they provide righteous protection to all of these lay devotees and their families. May all the devas also be able to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share this merit with all of these lay devotees as past relatives. May all those departed relatives rejoice in this merit. May they have a good life in the next world. May they be happy and well. May they all be able to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share this merit with our teacher, 𝗵𝗺 who taught us Dhamma in this era, with 𝗵𝗺 with all the monks of Mahamevnawa, all the monks training in the Buddha's dispensation. May all these monks be able to rejoice in this merit and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share this merit with all these lay devotees that participated, with all of your families and friends and loved ones. May all of you be happy, healthy, and well. May you all have long lifespan. May you all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths and escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Everyone chant with me. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame bhante bhuripanya tathagata. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame dhamma sanditthika kalika. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kamame sangha punyakyetang anuttara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I will chant a blessing for you all. Abhivadana 𝗙𝗟 niccang vardhāpaචāyino cattaro dhamma vaddanti āyuvanno sukham balang āyurārogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevaca ato nibbāna sampatti eminate samijjatu. May you all be happy and well. 𝗪ᵣ Saranai, Namo Buddhaya.
Our Sir, may we ask forgiveness from Bhagavan.
Amen.
Dear devotees, let's go to the floor and worshiping at Saminansi. Okasa vandami bante maya katam punyang samina anumoditabbang.
Sadhu sadhu anumodami.
Samina katam punyang maihan databbang.
Sadhu sadhu anumodate.
Sadhu sadhu anumodami. Okasa dwarattena katan sabbang acchayang kamatame bante.
Amami kamitabang.
Okasa kamami bante. Dutiyampi okasa kamami bante. Tatiyampi okasa kamami bante.
May you all be happy and well. 𝗪ᵣ Saranai, Namo Buddhaya.